Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. It's the only backpacking show where the hosts are actually on the road all the time. I'm Alan. I'm here with my best friend and one of the greatest travellers of all time. It's the ever-competitive Adam.
This show, mate, we've got a bit of a fun one. We're introducing a brand new game to the show where we pitch some hostels against each other in the search for the shittest accommodation we can possibly find. And then, of course, at the end of the show, we're going to have another story from a listener building that travel community.
It's a bit of a curveball show. It's the kind of show that people either love to love or hate to regret or anything in between, because we're going in some tangential areas. I'm looking forward to it. You know what I was thinking today and I wanted to talk to you about?
Go on.
The competitive aspects of travel. You know, that kind of vibe that you sometimes get. The reason I was thinking about it is because we were recently traveling with quite a young traveller.
Very young.
And he was saying to me, like, oh, how many countries have you been to? And I thought about that question and the performative sense of it. How many times have we heard, answered, performed out that line of dialogue as travellers where you go, oh, I've been to this many countries. How many countries have you been to? How long have you been travelling for? Have you been to this place which is off the beaten track?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the kind of analogy would be like middle management. You sometimes see people at the very, very bottom end, like this lovely young lad that we were travelling with, who's pretty sort of new to the game, humble as they come. Just really looking forward to a life of travel. Can't wait to get stuck into the rest of the world. And then you get people at the very top end that have been to 60, 70, 100 countries. Also very humble. It's the guys that are hovering around the 30, 40 mark that have got a point to prove. They're the ones you want to steer clear of.
I wonder how new of a phenomenon this is.
Yeah.
Because I'd hate to hark back, like when I started travelling in 2015, things were different.
When I'd only been to 30 countries, things were different.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder how much this is a symptom of the new Instagrammy reward-based travel, where it's like, you've got to go to this Blue Lagoon that you've seen on Instagram, and if you don't, then you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But when I think back in 2015, it was more like a badge of honour. Are you one of those travellers who is just taking a year out from school to go travelling? Or are you one of the serious ones with a mental illness who's travelling because you literally don't know what else to do? And we'd kind of wear that as a travel community. Oh, I'm actually travelling for a year and a half now. And people would be like, oh my God, that's crazy. What's that like? And there was something happened in the pandemic, I think, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I stopped travelling for a year during the pandemic. And
you did what?
I stopped travelling because of a medically enforced situation. And then by the time I got back, people were claiming some extraordinary numbers.
Of countries that they've been to?
And how long they'd been travelling. I feel like before the pandemic, I'd been travelling for 4 years non-stop.
Right.
And I would say that and people would be like, well, it's a funny thing that happens. You say you've been travelling a year, people are like, wow. You say you've been travelling for 2 years, people are like, wow. You say you've been travelling for 3 years, people are like,
oh dear.
Oh, okay. You say you've been travelling for 4 years and people are like, are you all right?
Yeah.
Do you
totally
need help?
Yeah. I mean, when I was travelling through the pandemic, I travelled through 7 countries during that sort of 2-year, 18-month period, which is more than most people I know. It's a tricky one because I would say that you now sit in that category right at the top where you've been to so many countries. It's difficult to make it sound like anything other than a brag.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But it's like, you get to this point where I run into people after the pandemic. I'd be like, how long have you been travelling for? And they'd be like, 10 years. I'd be like, right. Wow, that's amazing. You've been travelling longer than me. And I've pretty much spent my whole 20s travelling. And you're younger than me. How is that possible? Yeah. And I would investigate.
I already know what's coming.
And they'd be like, oh yeah, well, I went on holiday when I was 13, so I started traveling then. That was when I started traveling. And then, by the time I was 20, I'd been already traveling for 7 years. The reason you're manipulating that memory and those stats is because you want to perform as someone who's really, really well traveled.
Yeah.
It's stopped being about your actual experiences and just sharing, this is my lived experiences, how long I've been traveling for. And it's become about I'm a level 5 traveler. I've been traveling for this long.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a toxic culture that exists within backpacking that we've touched on before. I mean, I've even heard people include the 2 years of the pandemic as traveling. You know, they travelled to a place, got stuck there for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you know, I've been on the road for 6 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But 2 of those years, I was doing absolutely fuck all in a place I didn't want to be. And you're like, oh, that doesn't sound very positive.
Are you ever guilty of it? Because I sometimes count working holiday visas into my travel time.
Yeah, well, then it becomes about threshold, doesn't it? It's like, where's the cutoff line? Because I've been travelling in inverted commas, quote unquote, or whatever, for, let's say, 10 years. I first left on my big trip through Russia and China in 2014. Obviously, I've been home a couple of times. I've been to see my family. I got stuck at home for 4 months or whatever it was during the pandemic. And I've lived in 7 countries, some of those for 2.5, 3 years. But it's still not home, and it was always temporary. So that's probably a different subject for a different day. I probably rephrase it and say I've been away from home for about 10 years now, as opposed to traveling for 10 years, because I think that probably gives people the idea that you're just a backpacker and you're moving through, you know, every week or 2 weeks, you're changing location perhaps. But yeah, it is a bit of a grey area. This kind of one-upmanship, or we even call it one-downmanship, like trying to go for as long as you possibly can on the least amount of money you can possibly go. I mean, I see some people in hostels now, and they eat the food they're eating. I just think you wouldn't feed it to your worst enemy.
Well, so you think that there's almost like a desire when you're traveling amongst this certain class of slightly toxic people.
Yeah.
There's like, you want to have the most reductive, shittest experience possible. Yeah. Because that's deemed to be like badass.
Well, the most authentic, without a doubt.
If you're staying in a hotel, I'm staying in a hostel. If you're staying in a hostel, I'm staying on a mat on the floor without a roof over my head. If you're doing that, then I'm going to roll around in literal shit in an attempt to have the worst possible experience and then brag about it later.
Well, I mean, the perfect example, I think this is 2 things. And guys, if you are listening and you've done this, or you know someone who has, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is going to take me a little while to get to. So I've been guilty of this, and I'm sure you have as well. When you get from one destination to another, especially in developing countries, back in, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever, there were bus companies, tour companies. You could either maybe hitchhike, or you could get a local bus, or you could get a private car, or you could get a fucking chicken bus. Yeah. And if you get picked up by a chicken bus and you sit in the back with a load of locals that are on their way to the next village, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
And that is like a badge of honour. You get to oh, you booked a bus, did you? Oh, you booked a bus at the booking office.
Uber, was it?
You paid $5 for that, did you really? Yeah. I just hopped in the back of a chicken bus, covered in shit. It was absolutely miserable for the entire time, and it took 5 times as long, but it is a better story.
Definitely.
If you use that to put someone else down, I'm not a fan of that. Now, where this kind of goes into what I was going to highlight, and I'm sure you've seen this on Instagram, have you seen, is it that the iron ore train through Mauritania?
I've not seen it.
Have you not seen it on Instagram?
No.
Fucking hell, it's absolutely everywhere. You see people nowadays, they are doing like Instagram and TikTok content of them sitting in a train, which is like a cargo train, carrying loads of whatever it is, coal, iron, or I don't know, across through the desert. And I guess way back when, that was a fucking cool way to travel. That was very old school, probably not good for your health. But now it's become like a glamorous thing to do, where people are deliberately going to Mauritania, and again, don't quote me on that, I'm pretty sure it's Mauritania, just to do this train thing. And it completely misses the fucking point.
Right.
Doesn't it?
It's just so you're just doing it because it's this performative, like, I did this crazy thing.
Yeah. It's now become a gimmick. As opposed to like a way that really poor locals maybe used to travel.
Right, yeah.
Or, you know, like stowing away on a boat. It's like, oh my God, did you have to stow away? No, I'm a backpacker who's been away for a month. I just wanted to tell a cool story.
And my least favourite type of traveller are the ones who, like, they adopt a sort of challenging persona. You'll meet them at all. Like, you go, I just went out and got some food. And they're like, oh, how much did you pay for it?
Right.
And I'd be like, oh, you know, I saw this recommended restaurant on Google Maps, and they're like, ooh, went to a restaurant, did you? I just went to the local market. I just paid in beads, which is actually the most early form of currency. So there was actually no transactional exchange. I actually got to talk to some really great locals and had an authentic experience. You were served by a waiter in a restaurant. Oh, right, okay. I'm like, leave me alone, you fucking... Get off my case.
I mean, I have to be careful how wide I open my mouth here, because I definitely exist on the spectrum. Maybe not in this example in particular, but there are other areas that this kind of mindset bleeds into when it comes to long-term travel and backpacking. And I have been absolutely guilty of that. So, I don't want to pretend that, I'm not the same in some areas, because when it comes to food, I mean, my good mate Stu, who listens to this show, I visited him in Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when we were living in Hong Kong together, almost every meal, he would just go to 7-Eleven for a sandwich. And I'm like, Stu, man, you're in Hong Kong. Like, it's one of the foodie capitals of the world. Please, 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 can I just take you for some food? Because you're not getting that immersive experience. Yeah. And he's like, Adam, I don't fucking care. I just want to eat a sandwich that comes out of a plastic wrapper from the local shop. I'm not bothered, mate. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, travel is, means something different to you, I suppose.
Oh, Stu, you're a level 1 traveller.
Each to their own. But, in the same breath, he lived in Taiwan for fucking years. He's lived experiences that I can only dream of. So, I don't know. It's a toughie. It's a really tough one.
It's a toughie, but you know what? I think you've got to just live and let live when it comes to travel. You've got to travel in the way you want. It's important to share stories. First and foremost, I think the reason people talk about where they've been, how long they've been traveling for, it's because we ask these questions of each other all the time. And it's just a way of encapsulating your travel story without having to go into too much detail. It's just a way to quickly reveal to someone, oh, this is what I've been up to for the last little bit.
Yeah. I think for me, the best case scenario is that you meet people in the travel space, whether it be a hostel or anywhere else on a workaway, something like that. And what they've done and what they're doing inspires you to do more.
Absolutely, man. Adam, I've been thinking about this sort of performative one-upmanship in the travel space. Travellers who always want to stay in the grittiest, dirtiest, most authentic accommodation and will begrudge other people for staying in a nicer hostel, Airbnb, hotel, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like us staying in an Airbnb.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I thought about this. I was thinking, what if you took all those toxic aspects of the worst kinds of travellers and rammed them into a sort of AI model? Definitely not ChatGPT, just some sort of AI model. So I created this sort of demonic travel monster. Right. I call it Vagabot 3000.
Vagabot 3000, what an amazing name.
Yeah, and Vagabot, basically, the idea behind this AI model is that it's just desperate to have the most authentic travel experience. It's like if you sent ChatGPT to Thailand on a gap year and just let it come back with all the things it has absorbed during its time there. It basically fundamentally believes that luxury is the antithesis of travel, and that it wants to have the most authentic experience possible.
Yeah, I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people, and probably me included, actually.
Yeah, so I wanted to play a game with you, right?
Go on.
So every now and again, we're going to randomly generate a location. We did this in the middle of the week, and we randomly generated Kotor in Montenegro.
Lovely. Not been there myself.
Me and you went and found the worst possible reviews that we could find in hostels in Kotor.
Yeah.
We're going to compete them off against each other, and then we're going to find out where Vagabot 3000 would rather stay. You're going to read your worst possible review, a real review found on the internet for a hostel in Kotor.
Yeah.
I'm going to read my worst review that I've found. We'll battle them against each other, and then we'll find out where Vagabot 3000, this authentic travel bot, where that bot wants to stay. Then we'll name and shame that hostel live on the podcast. Because if Vagabond wants to stay at your hostel, that means it's properly shit.
So it's our ability to find the worst, most authentic accommodation possible, as decided by Vagabot 3000, the ultimate backpacker.
Absolutely. So what review have you brought to the table today? The worst review you could find for a hostel in Kotor. Hostel Wars.
Okay, so after much research, I found a hostel review that was a whopping 5.7 stars.
Oh, that's quite high.
Quite high. So I'm going to read the review now. We waited almost an hour in the reception. At first, the staff seemed busy, but we realised that was not the case. Most of the people living in the hostel were, in fact, the staff. The barbecue is not to be recommended. It was €25, and you were offered 2 sausages and some bread. In the evening, the staff, mostly Aussies, concentrated on themselves. Nick was the only service-minded of the entire staff, consisting of 10-plus people. At some point, it was difficult to buy beers due to the lack of hierarchy.
Oh, no. Okay, so it was an odd social strata in your hostel.
Yeah. Does Vagabot drink. If he drinks, I fancy my chances.
I think Vagabot will drink because he's seen other travellers drink.
He likes Chang.
Yeah, exactly. Any reply from the hostel itself to that awful review?
Yeah, one of the reasons I chose this actually was because of the fantastic reply from the owner of the hostel.
Okay.
Who has said, this is so amazing. I love this sort of stuff. We could do a podcast just about reviews, I'm sure. The owners replied to that by saying, "Thank you for your review. I will do my best to find you and treat you with the opportunity to say all of this to my face. See you soon. Happy smiling." A smiling emoji.
Oh my goodness. Now, I don't know if we can factor the owner's response into Vagabot's decision. I think Vagabot deals in the cold, hard material fact. But it is interesting that the owner essentially issued a threat to the person that made the review.
I do think it says a lot about an establishment if, the owner's chimed in. And he's gone, go on then, if you think you're hard enough.
Yeah, come on then. You couldn't find a beer, could you?
To say all of this to my face. Amazing.
That is brilliant.
Yeah, he's one of the staff. He's probably an Aussie.
Yeah. I went in a slightly different direction with my review. I chose a
hopefully not too far away from Kotor.
Well, still in Kotor as per the rules of Vagabot's sick little twisted game.
Yeah.
But I chose a 1-star review and it simply says the following: "Not worth it. Impossible to sleep in a boiling tiny room due to the unbearably noisy aircon machine. Is walking distance to the old town. Ina, the cleaning lady, who was only a temporary worker for 2 days, was lovely, even though she hadn't been given instructions about the hostel and was totally lost on her own." I like to think Ina just wandering these halls mysteriously at night, not knowing what's going on. The reviewer says, "It's impossible to sleep at night due to an extremely loud, unbearable freestanding aircon machine inside the tiny bedroom that made an industrial noise and was heard on the whole floor. Room unbearably hot. It was located just under the roof and had wooden walls and barely no electric light inside the room. Impossible to read in the room. And Alex, the Russian employee, was very rude to me. He only turned up at my door on the last night at midnight asking for €30 at the cleaning lady." That's Ina again, isn't it? This is all Ina's fault.
This is a review of Ina.
Yeah, the cleaning lady had got wrong. Very abrupt behaviour and bad manners. The hostel's located right next to the supermarket's rubbish dump and only one bathroom and shower for 8 people. They refuse card payments and force you to pay in cash. So there you go, a much longer review. Vagabot's got much more to go on. You've got multi-layers. You've got Ina, the wandering cleaning lady who doesn't know anything about cash. You've got Alex, the Russian bodyguard, forcing kind of payments in the middle of the night.
I get the impression that the room was hot.
Yeah.
They mentioned that a few times. They really drilled that home. Not somewhere I'd want to stay, but I also don't want to lead Vagabot 3000 down a path.
Well, I fancy my chances here because I think Vagabot is going to appreciate the sweltering nature of my hostel, and we don't know how he feels about beer, so I think he'll factor that in.
Well, I wonder whether the owner's reply would have swayed the decision, but I am looking forward to finding out because he is looking for that authentic experience after all.
Let's hear what the Vagabot has to say.
Vagabot 3000's decision. Alan's hostel. Want to know why? Because sleeping in a boiling attic box under a noisy aircon with a wandering cleaning lady and a panoramic view of a supermarket trash heap is absolutely wild. Adam's hostel was poorly run, but Alan's? That had real character. Book me in. Peace.
There you have it, everyone. Vagabot 3000 has chosen to stay at Kotor Hostelito.
Oh dear, fair and square. You won this one, mate. I'm looking forward to the next one. I've got to step up my game, obviously.
Kotor Hostelito, of course, the most authentic accommodation in the whole of Kotor. We'll play again soon. That was Hostel Wars. And here we are, a place that's fast becoming my favourite time in the show.
Yes.
If listeners go to tripologypodcast.com/tales of a trip, there's a link in the description. There's an opportunity to submit your best travel story, be it an emotional memory, a crazy tale. Last week we heard from Will, who got chased around by a bunch of monkeys in India.
Yeah, very scary stuff indeed. Not everyone would want that. Not everyone would want to be able to tell that as their greatest ever travel story, but I mean, what an extraordinary opportunity we're giving people now to sort of share what they've been up to.
Yeah, every week someone tells their greatest travel story. We want to hear from you, so head over to Tales of a Trip and submit it. But right now, we've got an amazing story to tell. Let's listen to it.
Hey guys, how's it going? Huge fan here. Lucas from Brazil. I used to live with Alan back in 2018, and he was actually one of the first guys that started to grow that dream of being a traveler
Oh,
and this kind of stuff. Today I am a digital nomad. I'm living currently in Costa Rica. So basically,
not bad.
I'm gonna tell you guys how I knew that my current wife was the one. Because this story is really funny and involves love, and a lot of shit, like literally, and travel. So basically, 2018, we were in Gili Tea, right? After a really nice, man, really nice time that we had traveling around Indonesia, and we were in Gili Tea, and we went to a night market. Back that time, me and my wife, we were like, I don't know, 4 months maybe, something like that together. And we went to a night market. We we choose some food there, and I had like a gili bali, sorry, a gili belly, not a Bali belly, but like island belly, something like that. So I consumed like water that was not that good, I reckon, and suddenly after I don't know, like 4 hours, 5 hours. I was like literally shitting myself. I shat on the bed, guys. Can you even imagine?
Rose petals.
You are like dating a girl for almost 4 months, and suddenly you wake up and you shed the bed. That was the moment that I realized that I was completely fucked. And my current wife, she actually went to the pharmacy. She bought medicine. She returned from our Airbnb, and man, she took care of me. Even she cleaned the bed, bro. And that time, man, that exactly time, I knew that she was the one. And now, like, we are currently married, 8 years already, and everything begun with literally shitting the bed. Thank you, guys. That's the story. Hope that you enjoyed, and that's it. Kiss, kiss.
Hey, thank you so much for sending your story, Lucas. A change of pace from Will's story last week. That's actually my friend of mine, Lucas. I lived with him very, very briefly
Right.
when I was first in New Zealand.
Was it so brief because he was shitting the bed?
No, it was so brief because I arrived in New Zealand with absolutely zero money.
Yeah.
And I just squirmed into a house share in which Lucas lived. We stayed in touch. We stayed in touch for quite a long time, but
This is Lucas from the aforementioned crack den in Auckland, is it?
No, Lucas never made it to the crack den. Lucas lived a much more luxurious life than I in New Zealand because he figured out how to not move into a crack den primarily. But lovely, lovely guy. Thank you so much for sending your story. I mean, you will be able to empathize with this more than me. And I'll tell you for why.
Okay.
I don't know if you've shit a bed, but you've definitely had more gastrointestinal issues in your life than I have.
Yes, yeah. I can empathise, although it didn't result in being married to the woman of my dreams.
Right.
But yeah, I have had some very unfortunate episodes. And, Stu's already got a mention once on this episode. But yeah, there was a time in Hong Kong where I was feeling pretty bad. I got food poisoning, I think, not from drinking water or whatever on Gili Tea. I didn't even realise that Gili Tea had a bad reputation.
For having bad water.
Or for people getting sick.
Well, I mean, because it's Gilly Belly.
Yeah.
I think you've heard of Bali Belly, Gilly Belly, Delhi Belly, all the bellies.
Yeah.
I'm drinking water right now on this show that you boiled for me.
Yeah.
And Manila has pretty good tap water.
Yeah. You just never know. But anyway, back in Hong Kong in 2018, 19, I guess it would have been maybe early 2020, I ate a beetroot that I had bought from a market, from a local market, a local market, because I'm always having the most authentic experience. I wouldn't go to a supermarket. And I washed it I kind of cooked it in the microwave whilst I was working in a wine bar. It was, my brief sort of 5 minutes when there was no customers. And later that night, I started feeling really cold, like freezing, even though I was fully clothed, as you'd expect, but with my jacket on as well. In Hong Kong, even at that time, that time of year it wasn't winter. Even in the winter, it's not that cold. But I came down with the chills. I couldn't even make it back to my hostel without huddling a few times in buildings and stuff, trying to keep warm. Went to sleep that night with the chills, fully clothed, with my Jack Wolfskin down jacket zipped up and my hood on.
Yeah.
Could you even believe, like on a top bunk, and then woke up in the morning and it was fairly embarrassing. I know I had to call in Stu, bless him, to help me out, and he went down to the local congee store. He bought me a bowl of soup, a congee, which is like a rice soup. Pumpkin and sweet corn congee. I remember it like it was yesterday. He placed it next to my head and I didn't touch it for 24 hours. I didn't even have the strength to lift the spoon to my mouth.
Just for sheer evocation of fecal matter.
Yeah, and do you know what? This is so embarrassing. I can't believe this is going on a main episode, but Lucas is leading by example.
Yeah.
Fair play to him. Lucas, what an amazing story. Thanks for sharing that.
It did lead to a marriage, so he kind of styled it out.
Yeah. Whereas this one, I spoke to Stu afterwards after he looked after me with a couple of other people in the dorm because we were long-termers. We couldn't get away from each other at this point. We were bonded. And I remember saying to them, guys, this is so embarrassing, but I really appreciate all your help. I did actually shit the bed. And Stu said, oh, we know. I was like, oh. How do you know? He was like, Adam, we're sleeping in the same room and you shit in the bed. Like,
it's so much better that you faced up to it rather than going, like, trying to style it out and clean the sheets surreptitiously.
We're talking about cleaning the sheets. Hats off to Lucas's now wife.
Yeah.
Is that the sort of thing that you would just take in your stride? Imagine they're obviously madly in love. They've been together for a long time now.
I've met her, but I didn't realise they were married, actually. So congratulations. Lucas is a good friend of mine, but I didn't know he was married. That's awesome.
4 months into the relationship, which in travel terms, that can be a year, really.
Oh, yeah, easily. I always think that because when you're travelling, you're together all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a marriage, sometimes you can be with each other. You both go to work, you see each other in the evening.
And like maybe we would do this, or you would do this with your backpacking friends or whatever. You're talking to people back home or people you meet on the road, and you talk about a newly formed relationship whilst you're away. You say, yeah, things are moving really fast. We're spending 24 hours a day with each other. We're in each other's pockets. We're shitting the bed together. They're cleaning it up for me. And you go, whoa, hang on, what?
What's happening?
It's just an amazing development. And I think once you get that sort of stuff out the way early and they're in, it's only going to go from strength to strength.
Travel, the best conduit possible for relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Lucas, thank you so much for sending that story in. We want to hear from all the Tripological audience. If you have a story to send in, it's tripologypodcast.com/tales of a trip. Record your best 3-minute story all about travel. We've got a bunch of social links down in the description. We've got Instagram, X, Facebook, Gmail. We've got a website where you can send us emails. There's all sorts of stuff going on, not to mention it's Patreon.
It's Patreon, the Lost and Found section. That's a little 15-20 minutes, if you're lucky, section after the show where we sort of go back to sort of old Tripology, just chin-wagging and telling stories and talk about what happens in our personal lives and all that sort of stuff. The gloves are off.
We go a bit unhinged, and I've got 2 stories to tell in this week's Patreon section.
Okay.
One is about a terrible encounter with a German traveller, and the other is about Lucas, the guy who's just called in the show,
oh God,
telling a right mischievous lie. And I want to talk about that because it happened to me. It was very curious, and it was one of the most mind-blowing experiences I've ever had. He said something to me, that caller that we just listened to, that changed my perception of reality so wholeheartedly. I'm still recovering from it, and we can hear about that in the Patreon section. That's patreon.com/Tripology podcast. Next week, though, it's going to be ever such a bacchanalian event of chaos. It's going to be everything kicking off here at Tripology. We'll see you there.
We'll see you there. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.